Now, I want you to realize I'm not playing that song as a tribute to the devil, to the Satan there. I'm playing it because this was what they were playing, and all of these people just singing along with it and going along with it. Right before the ISIS, or whoever ISIS is, the Israeli Secret Intelligence Service, opened up and killed 100 and some odd people in Paris, and moved all this along to wherever we're going. What they're trying to pull in Europe now, they're going to, let's see, they had Syrian passports. Well, of course, they had all kinds of passports there, but this is another CIA, Mossad murder spree, and they've had them a number of times here also. Let's do this. You need to hear David Icke. You need to hear David Icke. And maybe you'll be able to waken long enough to know that I've been bringing you the truth. I've been telling you the truth. News ain't always good, but it's accurate.
They will fear you. They'll wish they were you.
Awaken.
Ladies and gentlemen, David Icke.
Thank you. Well, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Yay. Thank you very much. Thank you. Whoa. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
I had to apologize to David when we were speaking at mutual engagement.
Thank you.
Told him I was a little...
Thank you.
I told him I owed him an apology because I didn't quite take him seriously when he talked about the reptilians until at the conspiracy con in San Jose, California, one of them accosted me in the elevator. His name was Lynn Horowitz, author of a book that's been on my show many times. I'd sold his book before I realized who he was and what he was. And he changed on me. He actually morphed. I said it was like being in a filming of a vampire movie. And they just changed. He just changed right in front of me. I almost convinced myself I was dreaming in an elevator, but nope, it was too real, and I went and apologized. Well, what are you apologizing to me for, Clay? Well, I didn't take you real seriously on this reptilian agenda that you talked about until I saw Lynn Horowitz transform in an elevator. And it's the only time in my life I've felt a fight or flight syndrome. But I'm still 6'4". I am a badass Texan, and I didn't run from him, and told him I didn't appreciate him using that language in front of my children. And when I told David about it, he said, well, when they get real angry, they have a hard time holding their shape, and that's exactly what happened. Now here's David Icke talking about Awaken. Awaken, part 1. I've got more than one part for this.
It's like the comedian Peter Kay said, don't peak too early like your dad, said to me. So I've got to follow that for the next 10 hours. Thank you very much. That's great. Well, it's great to be back at Wembley, isn't it amazing? say, back at Wembley, when you were a nutter 25 years ago, 20 years ago, 15 years ago, and there'll be some media people here who come with the impression that I still am, but we're going to talk about that which is beyond the norm, which, of course, will challenge much of the mainstream media, if not all of it. And we're going to talk about awakening. And what is awakening? Awakening is realizing that we've been living a fake self-identity and sussing the nature of the true self-identity. And through the day, there's going to be one heck of a lot of challenging information, because we need to know what we face with before we can do anything about it. But I don't want people to freeze or think, oh, it's hopeless, what can we do? Because in our true state, in our awakened state, we have the power to change anything. We have got into this situation by realizing or not realizing the power we have, by not realizing the true nature of who we are. And we can and we will paint another picture in this generations and generations to come. We will paint another picture. Because that other picture is just a change of perception of self and reality. I am love, you are love, we are infinite consciousness, eternal, all that has been, ever can be. That is as bad as it can get. But from that, I am love. Yeah. You are love, yeah. We are infinite consciousness, yeah. The next question comes, what the bloody hell happened? What happened? How did infinite awareness get so confused that it becomes entrapped in this? Quick, honey, he's just said on the news that Osama bin Laden has reincarnated and he's dropping Ebola from a flying saucer. Quick, honey. What will Simon Cowell think? How did we get here? Well, it's a big story and it's a long story, but it's a story that if we know it, we can get out of this nonsense. How do we get into a situation, infinite awareness, all that is as beautiful as can be, where in some supermarkets in America, they put up 3 hands to tell you that's what 15 means at the checkout? How do we get there? And then there's this guy. How do we become ruled by people who say wind is a finite resource and harnessing it would slow down the winds down, which would cause the temperature to go up? Someone voted for him. And then we have a president of the United States for which it would be you're quite right to say, I would challenge you to a battle of wits, but I see you are unarmed. I mean, I get the feeling in me water that there's something not quite right here, that this can happen. What's gone on? If ignorance is bliss, there must be shitloads of people in paradise. But ignorance is bliss, but only for a while, until they knock on your door and ask for your papers. This is a great line. Mark Twain, never argue with stupid people. They will drag you down to their level and then beat you with experience. And we've all bloody been there. You have the right to remain stupid. Everything you do not know can and will be used against you, most likely for profit. You can ignore reality, but you can't ignore the consequences of ignoring reality. And that's the whole point of today. A nation of sheep will soon have a government of wolves. And when you look around the world, that is what we have overwhelmingly, virtually everywhere. So how do we go from this to this? Like I say, it's a fantastic story, it's a long story, and an amazing story. And We went there because what we call stupid equals asleep. What we call asleep is hypnotized, and what we call hypnotized is unconscious. We have been systematically put into a state of unconsciousness so that we cannot see what we are part of and what we are experiencing, though that is changing and changing fast. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. All the time, the subconscious, which we're not aware of, is dictating the behavior and responses of the conscious. And if we don't understand the unconscious, then the conscious will just be a pawn in a game. It doesn't understand. Ignorance. The most violent element of society is ignorance. Ignorance is the key to everything, because everything comes from ignorance. What we will challenge, what we will accept, what we will respond to, what we will ignore, all comes from ignorance. What we will support and what we won't. And the idea from cradle to grave is to keep us in that state of ignorance. State schooling is stage one. Actually, it's stage two. Parents putting their programming onto their children before school is stage one if their parents are in that state of mind. But this is the first major program. State schooling decoded. It seems so complex, but all it means is that we're here to program your perceptions throughout your formative years so the state controls your mind for the rest of your life. End of story. And we call it education and learning about the world. No, it's learning about the world that in power wishes us to believe in. And here we go from school and we go into this free society. Oh, I'm free, I can do what I like. Go to work, get married, have children, act normal, walk on the pavement, watch TV, obey the law, safe your old age, then repeat after me, I am free. And we keep having to say we're free, and in America they keep having to tell the people they're free every 5 minutes because they might otherwise suss that they're not. Slavery was never abolished. It was only extended to include everyone. And yet people go so out of their way to convince themselves they're not in a state of slavery. This is slavery. But this could be an office where you have to be every morning at 9 o'clock. Otherwise you don't earn the money to survive another month. I mean, spot the bloody difference. Apart from the fact the chickens can't go home at night and watch Simon Bloody Cow, I don't see a lot. Slavery, it works better when you don't tell them. Because then you get no response to the fact that they're slaves because they don't think they are.
How many times have I told you this? The slaves don't know they're slaves. And they make the best kind. I've told you all of this. Everything David's telling you, I've told you over the last 20 years. It's still of me you want to say, beware. Wake up. David's telling you the truth. I've got to meet David. I've also got to meet Eustace Mullins. I've got to meet Bill Cooper. I've even got to meet some of the Branch Davidians that survived the massacre. They were featured in my show, the Free American Expo in Dallas in Mesquite. I've been telling you this for a long time. If I had your support, if you were awake enough to understand that I've been telling you the truth for 20 years, that I've got enough balls here to play David Icke's waking here, telling you the truth again, if I had your support, we would eventually reach a point of change here, real change. Not the fake change Obama's trying to foist upon you. And we would put these people in prison, or hang them for the traitors that they are. More from David Icke.
First stage of disconnecting from slavery, realize you're in a state of slavery. Then you know what to disconnect from. That's his great George Carlin. Oh, you hate your job? Why do you say so? There's a support group for that. It's called Everybody, and they meet at the bar. And that's not true of everybody, but the vast majority of people every morning around the world get up out of bed, if they have one, and go to do something they'd really rather not do, but they've got to pay the rent, so they've got to do it. They're pissing on us, and we say it's raining. No, we're free. We're free. I've got to vote every 4 years. To vote for different masks on the same face. It's ever so free. Oh, Leonardo da Vinci. There are 3 classes of people. Those who see when they are shown, those who do not see. And this system we call life is designed, again from cradle to grave, to make sure as many people do not see. And that's what I call the perception deception. Call my last book Perception Deception. I can't think of 2 words together that sum up our situation more than that. Because when there's a few controlling the many, you can't do it physically. You can do it physically in a small area. You can't do it physically across the world. You have to program the perception of the people so that they see the world the way that suits you. And from perception, again, comes everything. What I will challenge, what I will support, all of it. What I will see as good, bad, moral, immoral, all of it comes from perception, the point of perception. And that is the stadium on which the control of humanity is played out minute by minute. And it's even in their own quotes. These are 3 major CIA people. William Casey, CIA director, will know when our disinformation program is complete when everything the American public believes is false. The CIA owns everyone of any significance in the major media. William Coley, CIA director. Deception is a state of mind and the mind of the state. James Angleton, infamous CIA operative. It's all a mind game. And if we don't fall for it, we don't fall into the trap of seeing that we are slaves while thinking we're free. And here he is, the personification of frickin' evil. Decade after decade after decade after decade. If he went to jail for his crimes against humanity, A, they would have to throw the key mid-Atlantic, not worth keeping it, and he would have to reincarnate many times to complete the frickin' sentence. It's not a matter of what is true that counts, but what is perceived to be true. Exactly. And if we believe official sources, we are believing what they want to perceive us to be true. And they don't, oh, it's gone off, we'll go on in a minute. They don't call it television programming for nothing.
How often have I told you that exact statement here? If you listen to my show, I warned you, and when I started the militias in New Mexico, people wanted to know, what can I do, what can I do? And I said, well, the first thing you should do is take your weapon out, clean it, load it, and shoot the damn TV.
Television programming. Fear Ebola, fear ISIS, fear today, fear tomorrow, fear each other, fear...
The Russians are coming, the Russians are coming, the Germans are coming, the Germans are coming. Anybody they can turn you against, they want to make you fear them.
Russia, fear for your kids, fear climate change, fear, 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 fear. Fear everything and then give us your power so we can save you from what we've manipulated you to fear. It's going on day after day after day across the great spectrum of society. It tells you what to wear, what to eat, what to think, what to love, what to fear, who to ridicule, who to condemn. And it makes stupid people famous. What is that? What is it? I mean, what is it? You know, my mother always used to get words wrong. She talked about defective inspectors and snatcher dispel Sacha Distel for anyone younger than me. And she'd look at that, she'd say, "Hey, up, Dave, she's twerping." Yes, mother, because she's a frickin' twerp. George Orwell, 1984. Football, beer, and above all gambling filled up the horizon of their minds. To keep them in control was not difficult. And note that, if you watch sport in this country, he wrote that all that time ago, 1948 that book came out. Above all gambling. The television sport coverage is awash with gambling. Who's that bloke? Ray Winston? Have a bang on that. Nah. I'm a man of the people, me. So lose your money. Nah. God, what bollocks we put up with. Imagine if everyone was this passionate about things that actually matter. What a world we would live in. Oh, jeez. I love football, but Mike, it's a game. They're kicking a bag of wind about. Some very skillfully, some not very skillfully, but it's a bag of frickin' wind. It's a game. They sell us our dreams to keep us asleep. They tell us what success is, so we pursue their version of success, which is more things and more things and more things. You are feeling sleepy. Just and live your life as we tell you to live it. And all this together is what the great cosmologist and thinker Carl Sagan called the bamboozle. One of the saddest lessons of history is this: if we've been bamboozled long enough, we tend to reject any evidence of the bamboozle. We're no longer interested in finding out the truth. It's simply too painful to acknowledge, even to ourselves, that we've been taken. Once you give a charlatan power over you, you almost never get it back. Almost never. But we're frickin' going to. But that's what it is. It's a bamboozle. It's a mind program. And this state of being, this state of denial, is absolutely crucial to it. This is cognitive dissonance. This is a definition of it. Sometimes people hold a core belief that is very strong. When they're presented with evidence that works against that belief, the new evidence cannot be accepted. It would create a feeling that is extremely uncomfortable, called cognitive dissonance. And because it is so important to protect the core belief, they will rationalize, ignore, and even deny anything that doesn't fit in with the core belief. And that's why people that stand out and say things that are different to the norm invariably get attacked, ridiculed, condemned, and all the rest of it, because you're challenging so many. Oh my God, how many core beliefs are going to be challenged today? My goodness me. Getting the Guinness Book of Records for the day's out. Mark Twain, it's easier to fool people than to convince them they have been fooled. Why? Because they don't, understandably, want to realize they've been fooled. But it's a wonderful thing to realize you've been fooled. It's a great gift, because from that point you will not be fooled any longer. It's a wonderful gift. People are embarrassed by it. This is another fundamental aspect of the bamboozle. It's called Stockholm Syndrome, a psychological phenomenon in which hostages express empathy and have positive feelings towards their captors, sometimes to the point of defending them. And this scene from the first Matrix movie captured the Stockholm Syndrome so perfectly. You have to understand, most of these people are not ready to be unplugged, and many of them are so inert, so hopelessly dependent on the system, that they will fight to protect it. And so you have people in uniform who are part of what people term the 99%, actually probably 99.9 if you really get to it, and yet they're defending the 1% or the 0.1% from the rest. As Plato said, the ancient Greek philosopher, those who are able to see beyond the shadows and lies of their culture will never be understood, let alone believed by the masses, because the program is so strong. But we are starting to break it up. And so throughout history, the lights have been destroyed and dismissed with by the candles, all the way through history. And decades, sometimes hundreds of years later, people look back and they go, They killed him, but he were right, wouldn't he? And what do? The same thing in their time frame as they did to them, just in a different way. And they think they're different. Jonathan Swift, when a true genius appears, you can know him by this sign, that all the dunces are in confederacy against him. And that's because anyone who is any way enlightened is seeing through the program, and that which is still controlled by the program will therefore be in confederacy against him or her. And this great man, Giordano Bruno, died at the stake, thanks to the Roman Catholic Church, in 1600, for saying things that all this time later we know to be true. It is proof of a base and low mind for one to wish to think with the masses or the majority, merely because the majority is the majority. Truth does not change because it is or is not believed by a majority of the people. Great, great quote. So true. When you find yourself on the side of the majority, it's time to pause and reflect. Why? Because history shows us that invariably the majority are always following a cul-de-sac or a dead end. Mahatma Gandhi, many people, especially ignorant people, want to punish you for speaking the truth, for being correct, for being you. Never apologize for being correct or being years ahead of your time. If you're right and you know it, speak your mind, speak your mind. Even if you are in a minority of one, the truth is still the truth. And I would suggest that in our reality, this is the truth. We live in a fricking lunatic asylum. All right? Now imagine that you are born into a madhouse. You grow up in the madhouse. Your parents are from the madhouse. Your teachers are from the madhouse. Your scientists and your academics are from the madhouse. Your doctors are from the madhouse. All of them. The journalists are from the madhouse. Doesn't necessarily need to scan very far for that, does it? But what then happens is someone who's not grown up in that situation comes along and says, this is a frickin' madhouse. But to you, the madhouse is normal, because it's all you've ever known. And thus, to you, someone saying the madhouse is mad is themselves mad. It's one of the great examples of human inversion, this inverted society. And, as this man said, brilliant, birds born in a cage think flying is an illness. What you've been brought up with is your normal, however bloody mad it may be. It is no measure of health to be well adjusted to a profoundly sick society. And that sums up the madhouse. That sums up the madhouse. People who have become well adjusted to a profoundly sick society to the point where they think it's normal. And who runs the institutions of this world? People like that, because of the system that puts them there. It's great. An idiot is a genius to another idiot, because that's their perception of what a genius is. So, let's look at this madhouse and what is considered normal. We kill people who kill people because killing people is wrong. I mean, I was that high, and I was saying to my dad, we're still hanging people in Britain then. What are they hanging them for? They say killing's wrong. What are they doing? Couldn't work it out. It's madness. Oh no, an eye for an eye. Yeah, it makes the whole world blind. Yeah, gotcha. Here you go. I heard you throw bombs on people who throw bombs at you because you are throwing bombs at them, so they will stop throwing bombs at you. Just wanted to ask how it was working so far. Whoa. Jeez. Here we go, a bit of madness. Numbers of people murdered by governments from 1900 to 1999 alone, 262 million. That's the ones to know about. What it took to develop this fighter jet would have given every homeless person in the US a $600,000 home. Always money for war, not for peace and people. And there's a reason for that, which we'll come to later. 1,735 billion spent on war in 2012. It would take an estimated 175 billion a year to eradicate poverty. Some say a bit more, but certainly not even close to that. Why? Inversion. It's not something that's a crisis that's natural. It's a scam. There is no need for one single person on this planet to be hungry and to be homeless. No reason whatsoever. It's there because it's made to be there for all the reasons I'm going to explain today. And here we go, here's a bit of madness. No, it's sanity, it's sanity. What we do is we put poison on the food and then we frickin' eat it. And that's considered sane. And you get these people, they say, what do you mean organic food's better than the food with poison on it? That's crazy. What? That's what they say. Don't dance then. And then we borrow money that doesn't exist called credit and then pay interest on it. And we give all the things that are worth anything to the bankers for lending us money that doesn't exist called credit. Hey, it's a crazy world. No, it's not sane. And this is all going on now. This is all going on more and more day after day. Well, you've got to protect us from terrorists. The people putting them up are the terrorists. Think what it's still legal. Now, people might think that's a bit of a joke. It's not. No. Psychiatrists now say nonconformity is a mental illness. Only the sheeple are sane. They've got a name for it. They've always got a name. Oppositional defiant disorder. But apparently I'm a terminal case. For which I'm delighted. Now, pulling this all together, what we're looking at is what I call bubble people. Bubble people. They live in a bubble of perception and reject anything outside of that perception. Thus, they stay in the bubble. And so all these institutions are programming beliefs and perceptions in the bubble. And unless you break out of it, they're the only perceptions you ever come across. I mean, I love this one, experts. Oh, we've got an expert with us. And normally what follows after, and here's an expert, is a clueless prat. That's what I find, myself. Clueless at what they're talking about. Scientists talking about reality, but they haven't got a clue what reality is. And then the arrogance of the bubble. Because the bubble thinks that anything outside its bubble has got to be crazy and must not be believed. You must ridicule them outside the bubble. They can't be credible. They'll be inside the bubble with me. Condemnation without investigation is the height of ignorance, said Einstein. And my goodness me, this reality is awash with it. One little example. Professor Richard Dawkins at Oxford, who ridicules and attacks anything that's kind of different, and the arrogance of ignorance. Do you know something that's absolutely no doubt whatsoever cannot be challenged? We don't know everything. At any point we think we know up to a point, but there's always more, vast more to know. The arrogance of ignorance says, I know what I need to know already. And this is what they say to you. Look, mate, I live in... Oh, you've had that, haven't you? Look, mate, I live in the real world, me. All right, I've got that real world. Go to work, get married, have children, get normal. I am free. That's the real world they're talking about. The real world of human slavery masquerading as freedom. Wisdom tends to grow in proportion to one's awareness of one's own ignorance. Crucial. Or as Socrates said in ancient Greece, wisdom is knowing how little we know. And that opens the mind to all possibility, knowing that whatever we know, it's a fraction of what there is to know. What if all you ever knew was a lie? What if all we ever knew was a lie? That's extraordinary when you see the tidal wave of information that comes at us by the day. Well, William Casey, CIA Director, will know when our disinformation program is complete, when everything that Americans believe is false. Their goal is that everything we believe is a lie, and they're bloody close. Truth is truth even if no one believes it. A lie is a lie even if everyone believes it. Truth doesn't look at numbers, it looks at what is. And I love that line. You see that on news programs. They're talking about a story. They'll say, well, what we know is, and then they'll start to tell you what the government has put out in a statement. That's what we know. No, that's what they bloody said. And what we know, well, what do we know at any point? Until 1929, scientists thought there was only one galaxy in the universe, the Milky Way. Today, they estimate minimum 100 billion. I've seen figures twice that, 3 times that, in estimates by other people. From 1 in 1929. And at that point, they would have said, what we know is, first step to awakening to true self, we know shit.
And that's obviously illustrated right here on this show today, because I have a couple of people in the chat room, and this is just, by the way, I record every show here. I record every show. I put it up on freeamerican.com, and you can hear David, you can hear my other guests, you can hear me on the show. And then I've got this idiot that wants to know if I take calls. Yes, I do, star. Oh, yeah, and it's being recorded too. And if you called in and I had the patience to talk to your creepy ass, then you'd be recorded too, and people would be able to listen to that. So we could have another idiot going, well, are you going to talk? Are you going to? Yeah, I'm talking. I'm talking to everyone around there. And you are an ignorant son of a bitch. So if you want to call me, please feel free. All you got to do is dial the number that's on your screen up there, 646-915-8774, and you might get 2 words in before I hang up on your stupid ass, especially if the first thing that you ask is this going to be a recording? You're damn right it is. Jesus Christ. Jerry, this is, and I suspect this. No, Jerry, you're a troll too. I don't even bother to think about it here. Goodbye. Use your goddamn name. Yep, not putting this guy up. Maybe I would. Maybe I would. What you do is if you call in at the number that's up on your screen, 646-915-8774, and I will hit you. I will open up. I will let you come in and talk or ask questions. Now, I have had intelligent people ask questions today, and evidently I ran out of these. Is this a recording? Yes. Gee, I couldn't really afford to fly David Icke in from England to let him tell you what he's telling here. Jesus Christ. Yeah, couldn't really do that. Just couldn't afford it. And I got an asshole here that wants to do this. Now we got an asshole that's got his number blocked. Got his number blocked. I don't accept calls from block numbers, asshole. You got
Sure
that?
you don't, because you don't want to talk to anybody. You want to let everybody talk. You just want to sit there and talk, don't you?
Yeah, I do, asshole. Don't call in without a number.
Yeah, why are you calling me names, bro? You don't even know who I am.
I know who you
even
are.
know what I'm about.
Get by, you
You're
ignorant son of a
cowards.
bitch.
Everybody else are cowards. You're the coward.
Yeah, right. Okay, I don't take calls from block numbers because that's why. They just want to get their little incentive invectives in here, and I ain't going to do that. And Starro, yeah, you ain't welcome either. Goodbye. Now let's go back to David and see, listen to what some intelligent people got to say. Jesus Christ, not many of them out there. I tell you, I'm not playing that game. That's why I don't take calls, because there's nobody of any intelligence out there, it seems, at all. Not playing that game. David Icke.
From that starting point, we've got a chance of knowing more than shit. Re-examine all you have been told. Dismiss what insults your soul, and that includes every word I say today if it insults your soul. Emancipate yourselves from mental slavery. I love the way he sings that, Bob Marley. None but ourselves can free our minds. So true. It's our mind. Only we can free it. And people think about enlightenment as it's some kind of, trotting down country lanes with violins and little butterflies flying around with beautiful colors. Actually, it is this, brilliantly set out. Make no mistake about it, enlightenment is a destructive process. Enlightenment is the crumbling away of untruth. It's seeing through the facade of pretense. It's the complete eradication of everything we imagine to be true. Blank sheet of paper, starting again. What goes on that blank sheet of paper has now got to convince me. And I don't care if you got letters after your bloody name or letters before your name. I couldn't give a damn. I'm deciding my sense of reality, not the system. And John Lennon said, the more real you get, the more unreal the world gets. Why? Because the more real, awakened you become, the more you see the madhouse. And it's been going on for centuries. This is Leonardo da Vinci. I awoke only to see that the rest of the world was still asleep. But only when you awaken do you see the world's asleep, because you were asleep with all of them before. This is what we need to transform human reality. We need the end of bloody normal. This is a great line. Normal is getting dressed in clothes that you buy for work and driving through the traffic in a car you're still paying for. In order to get to the job, you need to pay for the clothes and the car and the house you leave vacant all day so you can afford to live in it. Brilliant. And when one person suffers from delusions, we call it mental illness. When a society suffers from them, we call it normal. Because who decides normal? That which controls the information within the society. There you go. I've just been called normal. I've never been so insulted. Here, do you know they've said I'm not normal? I can't bloody believe it. Someone told me the other day. Icke is mad. He's not normal. You know my response to that? My response has always been, thank bloody God for that, right? What a relief. A world that's insane thinks I'm mad, thank you, God. You. History shows us that the people who end up changing the world are always nuts until they're right, and then they're geniuses. History is alive with it. As I said in a book years ago, today's mighty oak is just yesterday's nut that held its ground. Long enough for perceptions to change. Can you remember who you were before the world told you what you should be? Can any of us remember that? When we're born into a world, and from day one we're told who we are, what we should do, what reality is, what we should aspire to, what we should oppose, all of it. Just a program. You know, this is my space. I'll decide what comes into it. And I don't care if you're a parent or a school teacher or a bloody politician, a scientist, an academic. I decide what comes into my space and my reality, not you. And when we do that, we can start to change. If you sense more, there is more. Yes. It's people get stuck in the mode of thinking. And when we feel something, what does it feel? You can say, well, it feels right. It shouldn't, but it does. This is the true self. This is the programmed self. Know the truth by the way it feels. And that's all I can say today. Because there's, my goodness me, there's so much information coming. But know it by how it feels. And let it run, even if you're incredibly skeptical, which you have every right to be. Let it run and let's see the pieces go and then make a decision at the end. But how does it feel? Not how does it perceive from my belief system. Awaken, awaken, awaken. Awaken from the program. And what's the first stage of that? The very first stage. Leonardo da Vinci had it. All great acts of genius began with the same consideration. Do not be constrained by your present reality. Because if we're constrained by a present reality, we go, yeah, truth, academic school, work, yes, death, I'm out of here now. I'm going round and round and round and round. That's all you can do unless you cease to be constrained by your reality and break out of that circle and look elsewhere. When you can see through the illusion, you are the solution. Because then the illusion ceases to have power over you and your perception of self and reality. Is this real life or is this fantasy? It is fantasy. Because it's all an illusion on a scale that we would beg a belief if we didn't see the evidence to back it up. But this is crucial. I'm going to be talking as the day goes on about how this world's manipulated and to what end. Deep, deep, deep in the rabbit hole. And when I started on this journey, it was a very lonely place. There were very few people walking on it anywhere in the world. Long time ago, 25 years. And there are now very large numbers of people, fantastic, great, wonderful, putting this information out about the manipulation, but on certain levels. I would just say to them that we're never going to, A, find the true nature of what's happening, or the answer to bringing it to an end, unless we appreciate the nature of reality itself, because at the inner core of those who are manipulating this world, they understand what reality is and thus how to manipulate it while they keep us in ignorance of that same information. Illusion comes from illusio, ludere, to play, to mock. And it plays and it mocks with us if we don't realize it's an illusion. And of course, it's all real. Consider that you see less than 1% of the electromagnetic spectrum and hear less than 1% of the acoustic spectrum. As you read this, you are traveling at 220 kilometers a second across the galaxy. 90% of your cells in your body carry their own microbial DNA and are not you. The atoms in your body are 99.9999% empty. I say 100% personally. Space, and none of them are the ones you were born with. Human beings have 46 chromosomes, 2 less than a potato. The existence of the rainbow depends on the conical photoreceptors in your eyes. To animals without cones, the rainbows do not exist. So you don't just look at a rainbow, you create it. This is pretty amazing, especially considering that all the beautiful colors you see represent less than 1% of the electromagnetic spectrum. And then there's this. Every second, 11 million sensations crackle along the brain pathways. The brain is confronted with an alarming array of images, sounds, and smells, which it rigorously filters down until it's left with a manageable list of around 40 from 11 million, thus 40 sensations per second make up what we perceive as reality. Okay, we have an expert. What we know is shit. Then we can get somewhere. And think on this. All the institutions that run this world and dictate its direction and dictate its sense of reality are all founded on the fact that this world is not an illusion, that it's really bloody solid, and all the quantum physics and the rest of it is irrelevant. And thus, bollocks begets bollocks. That's one of my laws, that. Bollocks begets bollocks. If you hit a piece of glass in the center with a hammer, it doesn't just smack where it hits. It goes off. Distortions, inversions in every direction. And if the very basis that you found society on is a fundamental misunderstanding of reality itself, then that flaw, that fundamental flaw, must infest every area of human life. No wonder it's a bloody madhouse. Here you go. The bamboozle, establishment, science, education, media. Just sticking its head up its arse, thinking it knows it all. Reality is merely an illusion, albeit a persistent one. Albert Einstein. And there's a reason why it's persistent. I would suggest, after 25 years of putting this together, we live in a virtual reality universe. And is that really so hard to imagine anymore? When you see the scale of reality that we see in these video games and stuff now, and movies, where it looks increasingly like the very reality that we're decoding. Even faces, people are looking more and more like each other in virtual reality. Guess what? And they're now using virtual reality in Burns use to test things, because the reality being piped to the eyes takes over the brain's perception to the point where it doesn't feel pain as it would normally. When you look at virtual reality, it's more developed sense. They've got the gloves on. And all that is doing is hacking into the way the body decodes reality into the five senses. Technologically, it's going to be very, very good to go through section 2 today. And
let's take a quick break here. And the caller I've got up on the line from 985. Who are you and what can I do for you?
Hello, Clay. It's David as usual.
Hi, David. Glad, hey, a voice of sanity out there, guy. I thought I recognized your number. If I'd paid more attention, I would have brought you up sooner. How are you, sir?
I'm doing fine. Clay, I just dialed one. So I ain't been waiting very long, but I see you've been having a little bit of fun dealing with imbeciles who are either scared to talk to you or, I don't know shit from shit.
Is this a recording I'm talking to? Is this a recording? I would call it a recording. What a fucking idiot. I mean, we've got out there. Yeah, I'm recording everything, you dipshit. It's nice to get an intelligent caller here. I really appreciate that, David. As always.
Mm-hmm. I deal with people like that all day. I feel for anybody who's got to put up with ignorance. I mean, this world is so... the world isn't short on it, is what I'm trying to say. There's no shortage of ignorance anymore. It's become common. Like Russell says, sense isn't common anymore. What we have is uncommon sense.
Well, you know, here I've got an article that I've been working on for a while. Goes back 50 years. When I started the article, I was talking about my little stint in the Army and how I had been... well, it's a different David, dummy. No, it's not David Kost. This is my friend David from New Orleans. I happen to recognize his number. So, finer haberdashery. Somebody don't have the goddamn guts to use his name. Say one more stupid thing and I'll kick your ass too and see that you stay out of my chat room. Got that? Back to you, David. I got another friend by the name of David that's been a guest on my show for many, many years, actually. And suddenly I wasn't taking his calls. I didn't do something right. I didn't do something the way he wanted. He got his feelings hurt, and then he didn't want to be on my show anymore. So I said, well, you know, I'll miss you. Sorry about that. But, you know, I don't always say everything, and I don't always agree with everyone.
I mean, if we're supposed to agree absolutely with everything anybody's ever said, what does that say? That spells communism with a capital C.
I think it spells ignorance. It just spells ignorance. You know, they want somebody to follow. You know, I don't mind somebody following me. But I've even told people, look, don't believe everything that I say. Don't believe anything that I say. Check it out for yourself. Check it out for yourself. Then tell me if I'm right or wrong.
Clay, almost everything I've ever heard from you, I've heard the same thing from 200 people. That's how you determine who's really telling the truth. We got, I don't know, 4 or 5 national news channels. They'll all have their own opinions. Well, and then they'll bring in an expert on one side of the issue, and then bring in an expert on the other, and then they say, okay, decide from here on out. How the hell do you accomplish anything like that? How do you get stuff done, make decisions when you're putting out in the open 2 opposing sides, and then you say you make the decision? That's to give us the illusion of choice instead of giving us the right choice.
Well, it's called common sense, and the story that I was writing, I went back probably to the 7th grade. Actually, I guess it was the 9th grade. I got kicked out of school in the 9th grade for doing my homework ahead of time. But I had already come to the realization in the 1st grade when the teacher put me in charge of teaching English, put me in charge of the reading class. It was like, you know, what's wrong with these people? What's wrong with these people around me? I could already read. I didn't need a teacher to teach me. My grandfather taught me when I was 6 years old or earlier. He wasn't alive that long. And it's just people, maybe the ruling class or the elite are correct. They think that we're not smart enough to govern ourselves, so we need them to do the governing. We need them to tell us what to do and take our money. I don't believe that's true, but that's the way most people act. They'll gladly give up their money. They'll gladly give up their freedom. They'll gladly give up their liberties. And the founding fathers told us if you're willing to give up your liberty for security, you know, you deserve neither.
That's pretty sad because we really see that right now, unofficially. Now, you can't tell that to people, especially people my age. You can't tell them that every day you're giving up your freedom. They'll say, But no, I'm not giving up my freedom. I can still do whatever the flying fuck I want. You know, ain't nobody going to tell me nothing. But I guarantee you, when they start asking for money and telling you you're going to lose your freedom, they'll fold. And you owe this much, they'll go ahead and pay it without asking questions. They won't even question it anymore. They just say, well, it's the law. And another thing I get a lot is from family members of mine. They feel uneasy about me posting certain things on Facebook. They say, "Oh, you can't. You shouldn't be saying that in these hard times. You know, people are taking this very seriously. You can get picked up and taken away. Picked up and taken away. I mean, with that attitude, we're creating the reality when people start thinking about that. See, at first, they may say to us that, if we suspect you're a terrorist or suspect you have terroristic ideas, they can say that. But then when you find out that terrorism is a sham, and they gotta make up excuses to justify their raises, maybe because of something one person said. I mean, I just don't know whether to laugh at the fact that people I know feel uneasy about me posting things because they're scared that we don't have freedom of speech, or because they're scared that we're going to be taken away. Either way, I just don't like the attitude, because people are already acting like our freedoms are gone, when in fact, I still want to say that they're still here in a small way. You know, if you work around all the bullshit.
Well, David, it's never been easy to be free. We could be walking in 12th century London. We could be walking and be hit on the head and hijacked and put on a ship and enslaved. We could have been doing that. It could have happened then. It's never been easy to be free.
That's right. Even after the War of Independence.
That's right. And this War of Independence, if we were independent, if we won that war, why did we give the guns back to the English? Why did we start paying them for... why did we start paying the king reparations? Yeah, and fun haberdashery, I'm getting ready to kick this guy off my chat room. He says, anything you post in our public domain can be used against you at any time. Well, spoken like a true chicken shit. Don't say anything. They might record it. And tell you what, you can go to hell and find haberdashery, since that's obviously not your name and you're hiding behind that. Go to hell. You're gone. Okay, let me go back. I've got a little bit more on this David Icke that I think we need to hear. And I'd like to keep you on. I'd like to keep you on because I might want some comments from you.
It can be so incredibly real. And all it is a fake reality being fed to us technologically. And it's an interactive, wireless cosmos that we are experiencing. You know, when you go out with a computer and they've got this Wi-Fi stuff every bloody where now. You're sitting in the middle of nowhere, in the middle of a town, whatever, and you sit there, and from the unseen, you are downloading or decoding onto that computer an entire global reality that can be picked up anywhere in the world that it's available. A wireless internet, and I call it the wireless cosmos, and the brain is massively part of the decoding system of this wireless cosmos. This is a projection or a simulation, if you like, of what Wi-Fi looks like in the unseen. And it's just information in a energetic form. and the computer tunes into that, decodes it onto the screen as the internet. We do not have empty space between us. We have energy. We have electromagnetic energy, and we have in that energy information. And from that, what I call the biological computer decodes that information into a sense of reality that we think is solid but simply cannot be. I'll go deeper into this as we go through here. The base form of our reality is waveform, energetic waveform, which can carry extraordinary amounts of information. I call it the metaphysical universe. It's the universe from which this one that we see, or think we do, comes. So, you have the information field, the cosmic internet if you like, and we decode it.
Alright, what happened here? Alright, it's taking a second to come back up here.
Through from that, through the digital, I'll get into all this as we go along, through to what is an illusion of physicality called holographic. I'll come to that quite shortly. And now we have mainstream scientists saying this reality could be just a hologram, exactly what it is. And the most dense of things, rocks, mountains, however kind of they may be indestructible, they are at their base form an energetic information field. The more dense the energy, the lower the frequency, the denser and more solid the form appears to be. And Nikola Tesla, the genius from which so much came, one of the great scientific geniuses of modern times, who in effect gave us the electrical system. He gave us radar because it was stolen from him. And he could see beyond the physical that we perceive. And he said, the day science begins to study non-physical phenomena, it will make more progress in one decade than in all the previous centuries of our existence. Why? Because you go to the source of the reality instead of the decoded expression of that reality. You go to the source, not the expression of the source. So we live in this cosmic internet. On one level, it operates on an electromagnetic level. Of course, the brain is working electrically as it interacts with it. And the reason that animals can be so sensitive to things that humans can't be, because they read the newspapers and watch Simon Cowell, but is because they've not gone through this system of programming. So they are naturally sensitive to these information fields and can pick up changes in it, which is why animals can feel earthquakes coming before they come. So what is the internet? People say, well, it's like pictures and text and colors on a screen. Well, yes, it is, but only on the screen. Everywhere else, it's electronic circuits and all that gadgetry. What is television? Well, it's pictures on a screen. Yes, it is, but only on the screen. Everywhere else, television, in the analog sense, is frequency fields, and or the electrical kit that they do now with digital. And our body-mind, the body-mind as I call it, is like a computer system which allows us to experience this reality. And that is just like sitting in an office. The person at the desk that can see the big picture is consciousness beyond the program, consciousness beyond mind, consciousness beyond the reality that we perceive, and that is experiencing the reality we perceive. If you cut that from that and isolate that in and of itself, which is what the program's designed to do, you detach people from their true self and their true perception of self. That's the thinker, the brain, the thinker, working it out. That's the knower. And if you detach the thinker from the knower, then the thinker is left helpless to have its thinking programmed by that which has been responsible for the disconnection and the isolation. So, if you program that level of self that's directly experiencing this reality, body, mind, with all this programming, you disconnect it from this, and that's how infinite consciousness can become an idiot. The brain is not who we are. It is a processor of information and a communicator of information. As this man rightly said, looking for consciousness in the brain is like looking inside a radio for the announcer. The radio is just decoding information. That's what the brain body is doing. We are conscious in a very narrow band we call conscious. That's what we perceive and think we're awake. But beyond that is the unconscious, the subconscious, which goes on and on into infinity. And the idea is to isolate the conscious from the greater self. So what we are in this reality is simply a point of attention which the body focuses into a tiny tiny range of frequencies we call the world. I'll get into that in a second. A point of attention. But if we get caught in the program, that point of attention is so focused on here that we lose connection with the greater self and all the other insight, knowledge, awareness that is open to us when we connect with it. Not some guy's shit, our greater self, our greater consciousness. Consciousness is what I call consciousness is like the ocean, whereas mind is the same substance, but it is far more limited. Like ice is the same substance as water, but it's in a completely different and more limited state. And if we get caught in that and disconnected from that, big trouble. And you know, when you look at the ocean, they say it's the South China Sea, they say it's the South Atlantic, the Indian Ocean, the North Atlantic. Same bloody water! Same water! But what we do is we give our water, our infinite self, names, like Ethel Jones and Arthur Smith. And we give them identities without realizing that we are just points of attention within one infinite, eternal consciousness. We are like the white waves in an ocean. They look different to the rest of the ocean, but they're just a different expression of the ocean. This is a fantastic picture. This sums up humanity. We are expressing our point of attention as a uniqueness, which is wonderful. A unique personality, a unique person, a unique perspective, a unique point of attention. But at that time, we are connected to all the other points of attention in infinite awareness, which in the end are all us and they are, and we are all them. And so, when we go to war, we go to conflict, we are fighting ourselves. You hit yourself around the head with a base.
I have met the enemy, and he is us. How many times you heard that from me?
They burn away. But we're doing that all the time because we've got caught in the illusion of the fact that we have empty space between us, that we're all individual to the connected. The ocean is the droplet is the ocean. Drop the droplet in the ocean, where does the droplet end and the ocean start? The idea of the conspiracy is to keep that droplet disconnected from the ocean. And when they do that, we have the world that we live in. Great line, Leonard Cohen. If you don't become the ocean, you'll be seasick all your life. And so many people feel this ache, this sense of destruction, this sense of longing that they can't get to, because one part of them, on one level of them, knows that we're all, everything is all. Learn how to see, realize that everything connects to everything else. It's an ocean. We are a point of attention, but we are the ocean. My God, that's what we are. We're the freaking ocean of infinite consciousness. What a job they've done to persuade us we're Ethel from the store. Near-death experiences have experienced this. So often, the common themes of what they say is incredible. How they leave the body and suddenly past, present and future are all happening at the same time, in the same moment. How they have multiple levels of awareness at the same time. In the body they had one level of awareness, because the body focuses us in these frequencies, locks us in like a computer. From one of my books, The Fear of Death comes from the ignorance of life. There is no death. There's just a removal from the vehicle into consciousness, in awareness of itself again. But you get people frightened to death, and they'll give their power away to doctors and chemo freaking therapy and all of it, because they want to stay alive because they fear death. There is no death. There's just a change of point of attention. That's all it is. Point of attention, point of attention. I'm terrified. If people say to me, don't you frighten, they'll kill you. Well, so they kill me, all right? I leave the body. Oh, God, I'm terrified. Oh, my goodness, it's such a nightmare, becoming all that is, has been, and never can be, in full awareness of itself.
Yeah, got to tell you, one of the things that I programmed in for today, and I appreciate you hanging in with me, David, it's entitled Half a Century Ago. Half a century ago. I started this article to talk about the Army, what happened to me in the Army. And I realized that half a century ago, this year, I joined the Army after dropping out of school. I volunteered for Special Forces in Vietnam. My tour of duty never consisted of leaving the USA because I caught spinal meningitis in my last week of training. My sergeants didn't believe I was really sick and marched me around a bivouac area, pointing out all of the latrines I was going to dig after I got back from sick call. I was on the last bus to the hospital and the last man into the doctor's office as I was being paralyzed. I made it to the doctor's office. He asked what the problem was. With the last of my strength, I said, "I'm sick, you son of a bitch," and passed out. I woke up in a bed of ice with a couple of orderlies complaining about their hands freezing. I remember telling them they should be thankful they weren't in the ice with me. I faded in and out of consciousness over a few days. I experienced some out-of-the-body moments, including a near-death experience, down the tunnel towards a brilliant light. In one of my moments of clarity, someone told me my mother had been notified, and she was on her way down from Fort Worth after being told they did not expect me to live. She came, and I think it was the sound of her footsteps that brought me back into my body. I became aware of this period that the hospital was filled with other victims of meningitis. A soldier in the room next to me was screaming. I asked an orderly what was wrong and couldn't they do something for him. he has the same as you, and he's in worse shape than you are. You got the strength to scream like that? My mother went home after raising a bit of hell and succeeded in getting a sergeant busted down to work in the mess hall. The chaplain showed up. Looks like you're going to make it, son. We could get you in that next graduating class and get you on the next plane for Vietnam. Seeing as how I was still in a wheelchair, I told him that did not sound like a good option. Well, we could send you over to Fort Hood and get you a medical discharge and a pension. In my book, that was the better option, but I never saw Fort Hood, and I was given an honorable discharge with medical conditions. It took me 50 years to even get recognized by the VA, and I'm still fighting for that pension. In my last year of junior high, my mother moved us into a new neighborhood for reasons I'm not sure of. Suddenly, I went from a straight-A student to a James Dean rebel. I'd bought a Mustang Thoroughbred motorcycle with the money I made selling donuts and working in the donut shop I'd been buying from. My life took a turn for the worse. In my new English class, while doing my math homework, I had not been in the school for a month and did not know anyone, and certainly not this English teacher. I started this article to discuss my problem with interpersonal relationships with officials and people in general, beginning with my Army experience. But obviously, my rebellious nature started before I enlisted. The teacher was angry and almost out of control at the thought of me doing my math in her class. "You're supposed to be reading a chapter I assigned you," she screamed. I read it. Then answer the questions at the end of it. I reached into my notebook, into my folder, and dropped a stack of paper on her desk. "Lady, I read the whole damn book, and there are the answers to the questions after every chapter. Now I work after school. This is where I do my math homework. Leave me alone." She took me to the vice principal. He had a paddle with holes drilled in it hanging on his wall to cut down the wind resistance, and told me he was going to give me licks. For what? Doing my homework in advance? No, for cussing at the teacher. You said damn. I was only 14, but I stood 6'4". I looked down into the vice principal Mandervilt's eyes. He was the vice principal of Forest Oak Junior High, and I said evenly, "You know, no one has ever hit me, and I don't think you'll be the first. You try to paddle me, I'll take that paddle away from you and jam it up your ass." I walked out of that school and never went back. There was no high school graduation party. I left the Army early, took my GED at TCU, and scored in the 90% rank of high school graduates. The high score did not get me a job or help me in life. Maybe the men who interviewed me at General Dynamics were afraid of hiring someone with my IQ, and other applicants with half my GED scores were hired. While I was in the Army, I applied for Officers Candidate School, OCS. I did not get it, and I was outraged. I stormed into the testing office and demanded to know why I had been turned down. "I have never failed a test," I told the sergeant who oversaw the testing. His words still haunt me. "You didn't fail the test. You scored so high they won't let you be an officer." I was stunned. "You only let stupid people be an officer?" No, but they think anyone with your IQ will question orders. I guess they were right. Never been the kind to just get along or follow orders that made no sense. Maybe that'll give you, maybe I'll finish this and polish it up to explain to you why I've been going through what I've gone through. I've known a lot of people, interviewed some of the most intelligent people on the planet. Eustace Mullins was one of them, and then I read everything that his teachers wrote too. I can read 1,000 words a minute, and I've got 90% comprehension. They sent me to a psychiatrist when they were deciding whether they were going to put me. And the psychiatrist said, you know, you got any special powers that other people don't? I said, yeah, I read 1,000 words a minute, and I got 90% of comprehension. I don't know many people that can do that, do you? the psychiatrist decided I was eccentric but not crazy, and I'm still fighting with the VA over my pensions, over their decision not to even acknowledge my service to this country. Now, folks, the short story is here, I took that oath to defend the Constitution. I read it. I also read the Communist Manifesto, and I understand that the oath that I took to defend this Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. Our enemies are domestic. So the people in charge of this country, they don't want you to know that. They don't want you to listen to me. I will question orders, and I believe I've come up with ways that we can follow that Constitution and stand up against us. So some of the things I'll play for you on the show this week probably talk about one guy that made something, made a little bit of money off of it, and decided to do something with that money. And he wanted to do things that were good for people, good for other countries, not just America, not just America. And what he came up with, and we'll be talking about this more, and you can actually see it on my website, you can see the videos. He came up with a bicycle. A bicycle. And on this bicycle, stationary bicycle, if you got on that bicycle and rode for an hour, 1 hour, you would generate enough energy to power your charge up your batteries and run your lights, your computer, your telephones for 24 hours. For 24 hours. I've always told you, if you grow your own food and generate your own energy, you don't need the government for nothing. I kept looking, and I believe a bicycle shop in your town could build you a generator out of the bicycle parts that they've got, and you could do that for your own home, just your own home. We don't have to take over the world. We don't have to defeat ISIS. We don't have to murder the bankers. We don't have to do that. We can do things right on our own in our own neighborhood. All you got to do is work together. I don't know how to build a bicycle. I don't know where to get the parts. But it doesn't take that much common sense to find the right people to do this. You can do it in your own neighborhood. Go see that show, Billions, I think is the title on it. It's and I've also got links on my website to Ron Finley, who plants vegetable gardens in South LA and abandoned lots and traffic medians along curbs. Why? For fun, for defiance, for beauty, and to offer some alternative to fast food in a community where the drive-thrus are killing more people than the drive-bys. Ron Finley. Growing your own food is like printing your own money. Now, if you can generate the power for a day for your home from a fucking bicycle, why don't you do that? Why don't you do that? David, any last words here, sir?
Boy, that's exactly what Tesla wanted for humanity. He wanted to make sure everybody in the world was able to create their own energy, electricity, and have it to where it's always at their hands, and they never have to pay or answer anybody because of it. Well, let's just say he's not in our history books near as prevalent as Thomas Edison, because J.P. Morgan spent all of his funding on him. Why? Because Thomas Edison said, if you can't put a meter on it, I have no use for it. And when Tesla passed away, no, before he passed away, let me back up. J.P. Morgan had his shop burned down. And whenever Tesla died, what little he had left, they raided his home, plundered everything they could, and a lot of technology we use today in the mainstream and a lot of stuff Edison proceeded with was all ripped off from him.
That's right. And they've done that to people like Eustace Mullins. Houston Mullins, I got to meet him. I went to his home, and I was just in the process of trying to bring him down to New Mexico where I could protect him when they killed him or when he died. I don't know who killed him. I don't know how that happened. But I was talking to him about coming to New Mexico and us working together. I wanted to put these little mini conferences on, kind of like the one I'm doing right now, to educate people, raise some money, sell some books, sell some videos, sell some tapes, and make things better. Every time I've tried to do that, I had one source of funding guy, helped him get out of jail in Texas. And he told me he wanted to help me get the Free Americans started again. I said, well, I appreciate that, man, but it's expensive. He said, Clay, I got $750,000 in one account. Money's not an issue. Well, they tried to kill him before I got there and put him in prison, and you might have seen his story on 60 Minutes. They just didn't tell you. They told you that Southern Poverty Law took his property, sued him, and took his property away and gave it to the 2 illegal aliens that he busted on his ranch, on a friend's ranch here in Texas. And so we never got together. I did go down there, but the Border Patrol stopped me from even talking to him. They are scared to death of me because I've got a lot of history. I got a lot of information. Bill Cooper and I were putting our magazines together when they killed him. We talked about it on my cell phone. They used that to stop Casey Nethercott. And I went down to meet with Casey, told him to buy me breakfast. They shot him coming out of Safeway with my breakfast. I'm still here. I'm still trying to do this, folks. And we're out of time. Thanks for listening, David. Appreciate your help and appreciate your calls. I'll take them anytime. God bless you. God bless you all. And keep in mind, Jesus told you, you can do what I do and more. You don't need priests, you don't need rabbis, and you damn sure don't need John Hagee to tell you where to send your money and who to support here. We're right here. We're right here. What's that, David? Go ahead. What?
Billy Graham as well. Him and his spiritual advisor in Israel that he consults with.
Sure they do. All right. Israel's behind all of this. The Rothschilds are behind Israel. They created Israel. They created the English bankers. It was the Balfour Declaration that gave the country of Palestine to the Jews. And all part of the plan. I keep trying to tell you about this, folks. The lawyers are not your friends, they're your politicians. They become your politicians, they become your presidents, they become your vice presidents. They are your Zionists out there, and they ain't working for you, they're working for someone else. God bless you all. Go ahead, David, one last word. The last word's yours.
Well, just keep in mind, like Russell says, heaven ain't never helped a man that never acted. God bless you all, too.
God bless you. Bye-bye now.